Hi guys, White Warlock here. This is going to be another deck guide video on the Purple Steel Jafar list. I have not changed the list at all, so the list is the exact same as the first video. But today we're going to talk about the cards I do not include and what you could replace them with if you want to include them. It could also depend on your matchups in your locals, or what you expect in your local set championships or even in the challenges. It also I also give a few key notes on if certain cards do well or very bad in testing, what you can replace to test those cards instead. And then you could maybe work with me perhaps, or just like on yourself to get a 60 card list that you really want. This deck should be 60 cards. Keep it at 60 cards, even though I know you're wheeling. You are not wheeling 4 times basically ever. Um, and you want the chance to have Jafar plus wheel plus small Jafar in your uh, top 17 cards ish. Um, to be as high as possible, right? To be able to shift on turn 5 and seeing whole new world. So I'll start with like an easy one. I again ordered it in categories, and I will tell you what cards I am running and what cards you could replace them with, right? So as you've seen in the last video, I'm playing double Tink and double Isma. That is like the kind of standard I want to go to. Um, but that might change. Let's say if Tinkerbell overperforms and Isma underperforms, then we can cut the Ismas and play 4 Tinkerbell, or maybe a 3-1 split, or maybe we play 3 Tinkerbell, and then if Beast does very well, we play a third Beast. And we could even possibly switch to 7 cost Cinderella, but as I'm definitely not planning on running the shift, it is a little bit bad, because you're not really getting to 7 ink, or at least not at 7 ink before your for your first wheel, and after that you kind of want to spend your turns drawing cards to get another wheel and not spend 7 ink to play a Cinderella. But if your meta is very steel heavy, then you could maybe try it out and see if that works. So yeah, so I would say I will stay with the 2-2 split, and if one of the two underperforms, you could replace them with the other, or with Beast, and maybe play a third Beast. And then you want to try to keep the Floodborn count at approximately the same level. Maybe you go down one, maybe add one, but approximately the same level. So the Blue Fairy stays to be a good card. However, there is what you could do is you could completely replace Blue Fairy and all the cards associated with it. So this is a very big category to switch to a more bounce package heavy deck. This might also be good. I think it's a little bit worse than what we currently have, because Blue Fairy allows us to draw cards with the 2 Floodborns that we're definitely playing 4 of, and other Floodborns we might play 2 or maybe even more of, like Small Aladdin, Tinkerbell, or Beast. Um, so we have the Robin Hood package, right, and the Blue Fairy, and then 2 Beasts to Aladdin. And what we could do is we could replace these cards with the bounce package, and then some 1 or 2 drops maybe, if we want to replace the whole Robin Hood package as well. So right now we are currently playing 2 Churnabox followers, and if we are cutting the 2 Robin Hoods, you could go to 4 Churnabox followers and maybe 2 Captain Hooks, and then you could place me. You could replace the Aladdins with Benjas, and then replace the Blue Fairy and the Beasts, and maybe the Yzma and the Tinkerbell as well, with Fox, Snake, and Goats. Goats themselves might also just be good enough without the rest of the bounce package, but currently I couldn't really find any room. But it's probably the number 1 card that I might want to include on my list. Um, We are currently playing 4 rabbit anyways, so the including the bounce package it doesn't cost that much because you don't need to play 4 of each. Let's say if you want to keep the Robin Hoods anyways, and you replace the 2 Aladdins with the 2 Benjas, then you have 6 cards. And if you don't play the goats, then you can just replace these 6 with I think 2 snakes, 4 foxes probably, or maybe a 3-3 split, and then maybe got some Maleficent sorcerers for goats. That would be I would say the best way to include this bounce package, but I'm not sure if the bounce package is something that we really want to do. But if you do, you could also look at Mrs. Smee and Captain Hook. But we have to see a little bit what we really want. All right, let's continue now with the last 2 categories. So I'm first gonna talk about the possible changes you could make to playing 4 Merlin rabbits and 4 Maleficents. So currently, yeah, we play 4 rabbit, 4 Maleficent sorcerers. That's a lot of draw cards. Maybe that's a little bit too much. I'm not completely sure, but it might be true that playing 4 Maleficents is a little bit too much, especially if we want to really go for the blue fairy route. You could play the full 4 Aladdin and then like play 2 Maleficent because Aladdin is kind of like a better Maleficent if you have a blue fairy out. However, because we are mulliganing 6 basically every game, maybe even 7, you can't really mulligan for Aladdin plus blue fairy, and in that case, Maleficent Sorceress is more reliable card draw. But again, it might be a little bit too much. What you could do if Isma is really overperforming and is a really good card in the deck, you could change the Maleficent with the 3-cost Isma. It's not a very good card by itself. 3/4 for 3 is not amazing. However, you could shift it on turn 4 and maybe remove something and then wheel it so they don't really draw the extra cards. They don't really have anything to do with the extra cards if your hand is pretty bad. Or you could kill something of your own and draw 2 cards if you need to find the Jafar, right? So that's a possibility. But in that case, you would probably run 4 Yzma and 0 Tinkerbell. I think that would also be a change. You could play either Peter Pan Shadowfinder or Peter Pan Shadow. The Shadowfinder is only 3 cost, and I think that is a little bit better than the Peter Pan Shadow. The Peter Pan Shadow currently, because we don't have any other rush cards at the moment, it doesn't really currently do anything. And at least the Peter Pan Shadowfinder gives our 2-cost Jafar rush on our turn because it has evasive on our turn. Then I don't think the 2 quest makes a lot of difference at the moment. So yeah, maybe you would change it with the sorcerers if you're running the bounce package. But I think it's more of a card for red purple or for a more mid-rangey purple steel deck and not really for our deck. Peter Pan Shadow Finder is a little bit more interesting. So it is a card that you could play after they shift Diablo and don't have a hidden cove, and then just uh, like quest, and then you can attack it, and they only draw 1 card, and it survives. However, we obviously currently have Jafar that does that anyways, and we have that on board. However, they can kill the Jafar with Shift, Sing, that Stormage on. However, that combo is very unlikely, statistically speaking, and you might just lose from that combo anyways, no matter what you're playing. Um, so I think this one is also one of the closest things to what I want to play. But currently, I really like the fact that I only have 12 uninkables, and this would add more uninkables unless you cut the rabbits for them instead of the Maleficent, but I don't think you should do that. Then there's another like spicy card, which is the boss on a roll. So this is not a character, but it's a pretty good turn 3 play nonetheless, because you're looking at your top 5 and you can order them however you want, and you could even, let's say you have double whole new world in the top 5, you can put one, um, on like the bottom of the five pile and the other on the top. So you draw that one, and then you draw the first one, then you can Jafar shift, and then you draw the second one from the Horny World activation. And then you have a Horny World for the next turn, and you just win if they let your Jafar live, right? It gives you a lot of options. It shows you what you want, and it gains one lore. So it's kind of a magnificent without the um, actual card draw and without the body, but that is not always too relevant. However, with red purple now playing maybe even later mains again, but especially being undisputed, you want to have at least one more body lying around that doesn't die to being attacked, so you don't want to quest with it. So that if, when you shift and when you finish your shift and sang World, that you're not losing the game because they being undisputed, and then you have zero characters on the board. So having characters on the board is pretty important. However, if you feel that during your testing you don't really need a Maleficent, you don't need a card draw, and you have enough bodies on board before the actual shift, then Boss on the Road could possibly do something. I think it's like on my top three, top five cards I want to test. So then we have the Dolores. So Dolores also kind of a card draw, but this one is a little bit more conditional because you have to have your opponent has to have an exerted character in play. Against some decks like red, purple, and blue, steel, that happens almost all the time. However, against decks like blue, red, it doesn't really. So if your meta has more blue, red variants, then maybe you should not play this card. It has a lot of downside, and uh, if you would play a 4-drop that does nothing, that costs for 3/3, that costs for 2, I would rather just play the goat, right? So the body is pretty good. The body is obviously much better than the rabbit, and because um, we are not bouncing the rabbit in our current deck, the rabbit has some less weaknesses, and it is inkable. However, your opponent doesn't really want to kill the rabbit ever, because then you draw an extra card, and with Dolores, um, that incentive is obviously much lower, and it has to have your opponent has to have an exotic character in play, but it has some potential, and questing for 2 is always nice. If you feel like you want more Jafars, you could play Jafar Lamp Thief. That's the 3 cost 2/2 that quest for 2. Questing for 2 is pretty nice, and it looks at the top 2, and you can put them on the you put one on the top and the one on the bottom. That is a little bit worse than drawing a card, but not that much worse than drawing a card actually. Unless both the top 2 cards are really bad, then it's a little bit unfortunate, right? But then at least you put one on the bottom, so you get only one bad card, and then the card after that shouldn't be as bad. It offers another shift target. However, this card dies to everything. It dies to brawl, which is a weakness we currently do not have. So against red purple, their brawls are pretty much useless because they're not gonna, unless they brawl the fairy. The other cards that they can brawl are fine for us to brawl. Like they can brawl Maleficent. They already draw the card. They can brawl Running Rabbit, and then we draw another card, right? So Jafar Lemteep doesn't really give us that protection that the other cards do have. So I would say it's probably not worth it to play, but it's relatively close to. If you want more Jafars, you could definitely got maybe 2 Maleficent for 2 Jafar Lamb but I don't think I would ever play 4. And then we could play the third or fourth Aladdin as well. Again, with the Blue Fairy, it is kind of a Maleficent, but only with Blue Fairy. And also some metas, it's a horrible bad card. Against other metas, it's really good. If your meta is full of blue steel and blue red, then you should probably play 3 or 4. If your meta is full of red, purple, and the green steel, then I would play none. Uh, Basically, I play 0 or maybe just the 2 we are running right now, just in case you are playing against that one red blue player in your meta. Um, but yeah, this is more like matchup and meta dependent, I would say. All right, then we will go to our last pal. which is the removals cards. So there are a lot of options in removal, and currently we play 4 hard removal actions, and you can replace them with basically anything. So it really depends on how important you think the removal cards are and what your meta will be. So if people don't play Hidden Cove in Green Steel, or there are no Green Steel players, then Smash becomes worse. If there are no decks that really require Zeus as an answer, Zeus becomes worse. Cards like Isma also become worse. So uh, take that into account. And if there are no real need for board wipes, then Grab Your Sword also becomes worse. So you have more multiple options. Fire Against is an option. I would probably only play one if you really want to play it. It's an inkable though, and if you replace the smash with it, you add another uninkable. Currently, we played 12, so we have some room, but it is kind of dangerous. We have 3 Let the Storm Rage on that we could play. This is like the maximum, which the best thing would be to and replace them with Smash. I have no idea if it's actually a good card in the Jafar list. I don't think so personally, because you're not. Yeah, you might have a good opportunity to sing them, but probably not when you are actually having your Jafar turns, and the targets are rather limited, and Smash hits Diablo in a cove, and Stormage on does not. You could play Rise of the Titans in heavy location-based metas. However, Red Purple, where the Rise of the Titans are mostly played against, is for the castle is a really good matchup for you. So I would say that Rise of the Titans is not really worth it in this match. In this deck. You could decide to play a third Zeus, mostly in uh, like trading the grappler sword for it. I would say that that would be a good choice in a deck in a meta with more red, blue, and blue steel, and less green steel and other aggro decks. You could play 2 avalanches instead of the Zeus if you have a meta with more green steel or aggro decks, or like the annoying location aggro decks, for example. Then you can just completely annihilate them with dealing 1 damage to each character and banishing a location. It is pretty good against green steel because it actually kills their Bucky even if they're in Ghost, because you deal 1 damage to the Bucky and then you kill the cove, and then the Buckies die because they only have 1 health left, and they have the 1 damage on them from the avalanche. You could also decide to play Babooms instead of Smash, and maybe even a third, and then got a Zeus or another card like Isma, for example. If you have a meta with a lot of green steel, but I would say Smash currently offers better card for our deck because we have a Jafar on turn 2 and a Jafar on turn 4, so our turn 3 is the most free in our deck. So Smash fits our deck a little bit better than Boom does, and you could always play another Smash over a Zeus if Zeuses are less necessary in your meta. And if grab your swords are more necessary for board wipes, you could cut a Zeus or maybe even a Smash if a Smash is less necessary, but probably Smash is more necessary in a meta that requires board wipe than the Zeus is. All right, those are all the cards that I was considering for this deck. If you have other cards that you would play, let me know. Except for Star to the Right, that card is not good. Trust me. You won't. Yeah, you don't really always have that 10 ink of characters on the board, even after shifting and singing Holy World. And as a card in your hand, the card is probably the single worst card that this deck could play, as we are almost never reaching 10 ink. Alright, I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know what you think of it and what you think of the deck. And I hope to see you in one of my next streams or in one of the videos. I uploaded the footage of the 2 streams I played with this deck and a match against Red Purple, so I can show you how insanely good this deck is against Red Purple. Alright, I hope you liked the video, and I'll see you later.